Hello, everybody. Welcome to the April. I can't believe it's already April. Welcome to our April webinar. We do these sessions every month. If you're on here, we have about 6 people going here. We'll wait for a little bit for more people to join. If you're on this, I'm super excited to have you on here. We have a really fun topic today. Today, we're talking about continuous improvement. Some ground rules, some housekeeping stuff. So, if it's your first time joining us on these webinar series, this platform is called Riverside. So, Riverside is a really neat platform that allows us to stream online, but also allows us to save really high quality video, and we use that later on for our own marketing. Now, if you're on the room here, to the right, there is a button for chat or for whatever. You can, if you have questions throughout the session, feel free to leave a chat message over there. In addition to that, I always welcome people to, if you are willing to, you can, there's a button on the bottom of the screen, I believe, that has, if you want to come on as a guest. So if you want to, come on the camera, turn on your camera, and then, speak with us, go ahead and raise your hand here, type a message and all that stuff, and then from there we'll have you on here and we have a conversation about continuous improvement, growing your flight school, and all that type of stuff. So without further ado, also, some more groundkeeping stuff. If you have been following us around, we have been putting a lot of new content out there. So I really appreciate the effort of our team. We've grown quite a lot in the past few years. There is some content I would really highly recommend checking out our website. Look at our blog post. We have a lot of stuff recently coming out on, the retention, discovery flights, sales tactics, all that type of stuff is on our website. This topic today, we're talking about continuous improvement. And in particular, there's different flavors of continuous improvement. So when I was working in, the factory life, I was working for Tyson, I was working for ConAgra and all that stuff. We have different things like Lean, Six Sigma. For software development, they have things called Agile and Sprints. There's different flavors of this methodology and kind of way of thinking. And there's one that really stuck out for me as a small business owner, and that's called EOS. So EOS stands for Entrepreneur Operating System. And it's what we kind of based our continuous improvement program on. And I mentioned this because we have had on our podcast EOS implementers. So these are specialists. These are people that have either they own a business and they then went into consulting. They work with small businesses, they come to your business, and then they implement an EOS program. So what we're talking about today is really how to implement a continuous improvement program. And a lot of things that we do at Rudder Marketing, as far as us internally, follows the EOS model. So you're going to see a lot of fun stuff here. It's one of the things I used to work with a lot, especially when we were in the production environment, manufacturing. This is high stakes production. We're doing 100 pieces per minute or per second, and we want to make sure we optimize the line. Now, the same thing can apply to a marketing agency like ourselves. It can also apply to a flight school. Are we optimizing the processes that we have at our school so that way we can deliver the best result for our customers, our students, and are we able to scale our business in the way we have? So that's what this is all about. There's different tools and techniques out there I'm going to share with you today. But first, I want to brief this with a question. So really quick here, let's see if I got it here. If you were to take off 2 weeks tomorrow, just out of nowhere, maybe something happened, would you and your flight school still run smoothly? So I ask this as a nice way to prompt the conversation here, because what it really means is, do you have the systems in place that is required? Do you have a team built and they know how to operate? Or do they not? I don't know. We're going to be talking about creating that culture, creating that system, those teams that are there. Because I think a lot of us, especially small business owners, whether you're a flight school, whether you're, a roofing company, it doesn't really matter, or water damage company. If you are as a small business owner were to take off for a month or 2 weeks, a lot of business owners are going to say that, something's going to hit the fan, right? It's not going to go well. Luckily we've been working on this for quite a bit, as far as EOS, continuous improvement, and just a testament to how this works. last Christmas in December, I was actually gone for a whole month of my business. So I left the business in the hands of my management team and also a few technicians out there. And I was out and I went to China and Japan and Taiwan. My wife is Chinese, and I visited my in-laws for the first time in like years. But yeah, I took a whole month off of work, and the system still kept going. We still signed on new flight schools. We still delivered the results. We still saw really great progress with the schools that we were working with. Now, if I was in place there, I'm sure that we could push harder. That's the role of the business owner. But you want to have some type of systems in place, leadership, accountability is in place. That way you're able to do that. So we're here right now. The answer is no. We have exactly what you need to fix that. So before we begin here, I just want to give a quick introduction. My name is Tim. I'm with Rudder Marketing. Like I said earlier, if you haven't checked us out, look at our website, look at all of our content we're putting out there. We do this for you guys. We want you guys as a business owner of a flight school, of an aviation business, to be successful. We want you guys to excel and be the best flight school and train the next generation of pilots. That's what we're here for. It's seen here. This is a collection, a little montage of the past few years here of some schools we've worked with across the nation, even internationally. Bottom right over there is iFly. Love them. They're in Mexico. We have people in Kansas City, Miami, Alabama. We have the East Coast over there, North Carolina, even the West Coast. We have Arizona as well. We have a lot of schools in California these days too. But we've been in this industry for a bit, and we really want to benefit, the industry and how to run your business. So that's kind of who we work with. And then over here, this is our team. It's actually grown a little bit since then. We are a lot of times remote, but we do meet in person many times. In fact, right now I have in the studio, we have Dan over there. He's the video guy. He's helping a lot. There's a funny hand right there. But we do meet in person. This is our team, and we're all dedicated and passionate aviators and website marketing specialists that are here for you guys. So really quick on the numbers here, we're looking at the aviation industry. There is a need for our business. There's a need for flight schools. We need pilots. I think it's some people say it's a myth, the pilot shortage. I think there's more of a aviation maintenance shortage these days too. But it's as a whole, the industry is growing. Especially America. We have a lot of flights that are happening in America domestically, but also internationally. You think about the market in Europe, you think about the market in Asia. Lots of pilots are needed, and in America, at least, the way we create pilots is through flight schools, right? it's through flight training organizations, and there's different levels of a flight school business. You have a lot of people when they first start out, for example, they might have one plane, a hangar, and they're just flying around training people. But eventually it starts building up to something more real. They might buy a second or a third plane. At that point they're probably around $500,000 in revenue, right? Eventually, if they continue the trajectory that they're on, they're going to be around the 1 million to 1.5 million. That's usually around 7 to 10 planes. If you have that in your fleet, you're usually operating at a decently sized school. But what you'll notice is there's a plateau. Around this 1.5 million, maybe 2 million for some schools, that every business owner, and myself included, we reach these plateaus and we have to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, what can we fix as a business owner? What can we do? And a lot of that goes to continuous improvement. It goes to a lot of the systems that we build. That way, when we give it to our team, they're able to operate, right? So this is more on the business side of it. If you are being stuck, that means that the flight school is running you. You're the technician, right? You're the one that's going out there. You're the one running the show. I like to think about it in different ways. First thing you, as a business owner, you kind of alleviate is the operations piece of this thing. And that piece is usually for a flight school is hiring a CFI, hiring additional CFIs as you go. But there's different categories of the business that you have to account for. You have management, for example. That's another thing you got to account for. You have HR, finance. You have sales and marketing. If you need marketing help, by the way, shout out to Rudder Marketing. Give us a call, 314-804-1010. 1200. We're here to help you. But if you're the one that's flying, you're the one that's instructing a lot of students. If you're at that 3, 5 plane, $500,000, less than $500,000, you're stuck. You need to hire eventually a CFI to get in there. On a bigger scale, however, you have these people working for you. You have this, kind of tribe running around. If you're not present, if you're not continuously there directing their focus, it gets off the tracks. Something maybe goes wrong. Maybe they're not implementing the right stuff. So we really need to build a system in general. So the fix right here is to not work harder. It's not to put more hours in the day. It's actually to create the system. That way you're able to work better. So what we have for you, this is what we call our program. It's based off EOS, but we call it the FLY program. So FLY stands for us is future planning. So we're looking at building systems that can help us scale. It's leadership development. So really what I like to think about is all our team members, all our crew members. I don't like to call them, they're technically employees. Yeah, W-2, whatever. But I like to look at them as, leaders and partners in the business. And really, even if they're at the bottom of the rung, maybe just a CFI or just a front desk worker, we as business owners need to instill into their head that they are a leader, and we need to start training them to start thinking of like how to be successful, how to train more students, how to increase our revenue. If they're not aligned in your goals and you're not crafting them as leaders, it's not going to go well. The last one in that piece is the why aspect of it, and I think it's probably the most important part, because it really distills down as for both business owner and the team members. They need to like the stuff they're doing. They need to love, flying. They need to love teaching students. They need to love if they're working, let's say, in the front desk. They need to love talking to prospective pilots. They need to love just aviation in general. If they don't share that passion with you, then they're not probably the right person for you to be working with you, right? We have let's see here. We have 6 different levers that's part of this FLY program. So I'm going to go through each one. It's quite a lengthy conversation. I don't know if we're going to get through all of it. So if you did register for this, you will get these slides at the end of it. You'll get a recording of the session. Let's just go through each one, and if you have enough time, if you don't fit it, we'll go over a little bit. So the first one's vision. The first one is all about you as the CEO, you as the founder and owner of the business, what are you doing to really what's your goal and mission and vision of like this organization that you're creating? Like what are you trying to really do here? And you create this vision. So a lot of schools say, hey, I want to be, a multi-location school. In the West Coast, sure. Some people have bigger ambitions. Maybe that your ambition is to, be national level. Maybe it's to expand out internationally. I don't know, but you have to have a vision of where your school is going, and then you bring that to your team members, and that now goes to the people. So we're looking at making sure that we have the right people in the right seats. We're having people that know what they're doing. They have the right values and things instilled with them. That's there. Now, how do we measure this? Is through the data. So, so you're looking at your scorecard. You should have a dashboard or some type of KPI. We call them key performance indicators, KPIs. You need to have some way of measuring how all this type of stuff works. We can be subjective with certain things like, oh, I feel that he doesn't fly very well. I feel that these students, I feel like I'm not getting that many phone calls. I feel XYZ. But really what we need to do is we need to look at it from an objective standpoint and be like, hey, these are the numbers. This is how many phone calls I got today. This is how many flight hours I had per plane this week. Make sure you have that data and make sure you're honest. That way you're able to hold yourself accountable. Over here, you have to the bottom left, you have processes. Well, I have a comment over here. I don't know if you can share this one. So Tom, I believe it's Tom from Vegas over there. He says that they have many systems, but they're run by individuals with tribal knowledge. And that happens a lot in all businesses, in factories, in manufacturing environments, in flight schools, marketing agencies like ourselves. We create a team They start doing the work. They do a great job in that work, but it's not documented. It's not really. There's no process that's there, a checklist that they have to follow. That way they can guarantee the result. Um, I'll tell you a story about like this is just my background for manufacturing, right? Um, the Hershey bar, not the Piper Cherokee wing, but the actual bar, um, has so many processes. So Hershey and the chocolate company, they have so many processes of how the ingredients are created, how to start the line, how to do a quality check, how to do the wrapper of the chocolate bar. It's all documented, and then they hold their team members to that standard. And if they don't follow that standard, well, one, the chocolate doesn't get made, and two, the team member gets laid off. So we really need to make sure that we're documenting the processes there. The next one over here is traction. So I forgot to bring my book with me. There's a couple books out there I really recommend. The first one is called Traction. It's by Gina Wickman, great author. This book that he writes documents a lot of stuff that we're talking about today. As far as people in the right seats, metrics, having the right processes, having core values and vision built out, and what this whole thing is about is really your rhythm, the culture and the rhythm of the company. So it's how well your momentum is growing, and there's different techniques there. So we call them like rocks, quarterly goals, how frequently you meet, and we're gonna dive into the different types of meetings that we have here in our company, that I see a lot in other businesses as well. They implement something very similar. The last one is called the issues list, or IDS, so identify, discuss, and solve. And that kind of gets into root cause analysis, corrective action, preventative action, CAPA. We call that in the I don't know, manufacturing industry. But we want to make sure that we're looking at what issues are there, and then we're coming up with solutions. That way we don't see the same issue over and over again. The one thing that makes me upset when I'm running my business is, like, let's say there's a problem with XYZ. So we fix it and then it goes away. 6 months later, that same problem arises, and I said, "Hey, we discussed this 6 months ago. Why are we talking about this again?" That is the stuff that's the type of stuff that upsets me, and it really goes on to, did you solve the actual issue, or you just put a Band-Aid on it, right? That's really at the heart of it. Did you actually fix it, or did you not? We're gonna get into each one in particular here. These are the tools, or the kind of things that we're gonna discuss here. Core values, right people, right seats, having procedures. We call them SOPs, standard operating procedures. We're talking about the quarterly goals, the rocks. We call them wings because we're an aviation company, so that stands for like wins and things like that, and all that type of stuff. And then also, lastly, the cadence of your meeting, like how frequent you and your team are meeting. So, all right. So core values. Let's start with the core values first, because that's really kind of what the heart of it is. If you don't have the right values in place, if you don't have the right ethos built into your culture, it can very easily morph into something that's not yours. And it can also morph into something that you don't really want it to, become. So you have to define, as the business owner, what is important to me. What are the main things that I need from my school, from my business, and this is important because it leads to the people perspective. So back to the slide over here, we're looking at examples of this. So some examples are there. Safety first. I think that's a really big one for flight schools. Aviation is unforgiving practice, right? People have died in the past, right? So we need to make sure that safety is a priority. That's a big one. I think that should be a core value for every school, by the way. It's not just a recommended one. That should be a necessary one. Other ones that are a little more lighter and softer, honesty, ownership, excellence, evidence success. So client or customer priority, right? Those are different examples of some schools. Like we have in Rudder marketing, we have defined our core values to, it's changed over time too. Like we used to have, I think we used to call it speed, like strengthening. I already forgot. Excellence was another one. We made an acronym out of it, but now we call it PAPI. So PAPI stands for not precision or path indicator, but it stands for our core values, because we like to look at it as a way to guide our customers to be successful. So PAPI stands for professional. We want to be professional. That's everything that we do. The way we work with our flight schools, the work we do as far as the marketing, the video content, the website creation, the SEO, everything we do for the customer and for ourselves and internally, we want to be professional about that. So it's always, that's our first core value over there. Um, the next one is authenticity. So we want to make sure that, we set expectations correctly. We're true to ourselves. We enjoy what we do. A lot that also goes to the marketing piece. We don't want to overuse AI. I think that's a big kind of hot topic. AI is out there. We use it for sure, but I think we want to show that we don't like to use stock imagery, for example. We don't like to use footage from somewhere else. We want to we want to capture the actual essence of a school and bring it to the public. That's kind of our drive, and that's one of our core values, that we want to be authentic. Passion is the next one. We want to make sure that everyone on the team is passionate about aviation, be passionate about marketing, or passionate about growing businesses. If they're not, if my team is not into that type of stuff, there's not really a place for them in the table, right? They need to love aviation. They need to love marketing. They need to love website design. They need to love video editing. They need to love SEO. They need to love all this type of stuff. They need to love software development. We do a lot of software stuff too. They need to have a passion for that. The last one is innovation. So that's our core value. Innovation means we're continuously improving, and that's why this is such a big piece of it. We have implemented this continuous improvement program because it's part of our core values. Now, I'll lead us up to the next one over here, which is, it goes to the people. So the way you assess people that are on your team is by holding to a standard, which is your core values. So what I like to do is, you have a list of core values. Let's say for us, it's, professionalism, authenticity, passion, innovation. And during my review with my team members, when I meet with them one-on-one to kind of discuss their performance, I take them to the core values. I say, hey, have you exhibited professionalism in the past 3 months working at Red Rudder Marketing? Have you innovated in any way? Have you done training? Have you read content and books on how to design a website the right way? Or have you created a system to help save time? Have you innovated the current process? Do you like your job? Are you passionate about flying? These are questions I ask my team members during the quarterly review because it's so important. And that's how you determine if they're in the right seat or not. Sometimes you can have the right person, but in the wrong seat. So, for example, maybe someone's really good on the phone, but they're building hours. They're working as a CFI, but they don't really like it, but they actually like talking to, prospects and doing sales. Maybe they belong in the sales department, right? Um, on the other hand, maybe I don't know. You have the wrong person in the wrong seat. So that means they don't follow the core values and they don't do a good job, and it's going to be bad for everybody. That's why I start with the core values first, because it brings it to the people, right? So now we're getting to people. So people is really about having what's called an accountability chart. So I kind of talked earlier about, there's really only three departments in any business. So the first one is really your your sales and marketing. So that is getting customers in the door. Like, if you do not have flight students at your school, you do not have a business, right? If there's no customers, there's no revenue. If there's no revenue, it's not a business. It's a hobby. So, um, sales and marketing is very important. I don't think flight schools put a lot of emphasis on this. But as you scale up, you're gonna realize that this has to be an important part of your entire organization. The next one is what a lot of flight school owners focus on, and I think that's what we're focusing on too, internally and also for our schools, is operations. There's different ways you're going to split up operations. You can do maybe just flight training, that's just it by itself. Maybe you have maybe you have a maintenance department. Maybe you're doing aircraft brokerage or FBO stuff too as well. That all falls under operations and how to run that well. And then obviously, we're going to be talking about SOPs and like continuous improvement practices and all this stuff, using those tools to build your operations helps scale the business, right? The last one is kind of a necessary one. I don't really like doing it, but it's kind of necessary. You have your admin people, so it's like your legal, your HR, and all that type of stuff. That's the third department that's in the business. Yeah, it's important to know your numbers. So I'm going to get into like what's called KPIs, key performance indicators. Finance is a big part of that. So I look at, for us, at least internally, we look at our monthly revenue, we look at our annual projected revenue, we look at our profits. So that's our, revenue minus expenses. We look at our balance sheet every single week. We make sure that we have money as a buffer. So if there's a high cost, maybe we're hiring someone new, we have enough buffer to hire that person, or if we need to buy some equipment, maybe buy an airplane, we have money to do that. So we have to make sure that's a KPI. Balance sheet is one. I've been fine. We're not going to get too much into like profit and all that stuff in this call, but it is a department that is necessary for your school, and you want to make sure you have that in there, and you can employ these continuous improvement practices in there too. The next part of this accountability chart is looking at, going up. This is going up the ladder, right? So we're looking at, first off, in the very, very top, you have you, the business owner. This is what we like to call it, the visionary. It's the one that sets the tone and the drumbeat of the business. And it's you as the business owner has to define what's important for you and the company, and you bring that down to what's called an integrator role. That's usually like a director of operations or maybe a general manager. COO is another title I've heard, or something like that. But typically, this person is in charge of you as the owner. You say, "Hey, I want this to happen." This person does it. He executes it, and you want someone that's in that role to do it. Not every now as you grow your business, not everyone's going to have an implementer. Sometimes you as a business owner has to be the implementer for the longest time until you develop the team and system where you have somebody to do that. I've also seen in some small businesses you have like a husband and wife or a brother and sister running the business, and sometimes the brother or the sister would be the visionary, and then and then maybe the someone else would be the integrator. Maybe the wife or the husband would then implement and all that type of stuff. So you want to make sure you have that type of stuff built in with there. So those are the different accountabilities. You want to kind of take a look at each role. So if you have a CFI, what are their accountabilities? They have to fly safely. They have to train the student. They have to take them through the curriculum. That's the CFI's role, right? They have to inspire the student. You want to define what is actually important for that role and what they're doing. You might have a director of maintenance. They're in charge of doing the planes, but you have to make sure you outline every single role that's in your company, every single accountability that's there. That chart I showed earlier is right here. It's very basic, and it's gonna have to you have to kind of branch it out for to really. This is just a high level view of it, but eventually it's going to branch out to specific roles in your company. It's not an organization chart, so it's not saying who's the boss of who. It's saying who's accountable for what. That's the main difference. So in my team, we have a creative team, then we have a tech team. That's kind of how we split up our departments, and then you have managers that kind of report to each to have like the team members. But then the accountabilities are kind of mixed. Sometimes the creative team works for the customer. Sometimes the creative team works for Rudder and marketing and doing our video content production and stuff like that. You want to define who's accountable for what task. That's the main kind of thing there. Going back to the people here, I was talking about, right people, right seats. This is how you understand what that person is doing in your company, if they're actually the right fit, and if they are the right person in the right seat. So there's really three components of it. It's, do they understand it? Do they get what you're trying to do? Like, for example, like this really goes on competency. So when you're hiring a CFI, are they able to control the airplane and be safe? It's kind of the first prerequisite, right? But that's the first thing. Do they get it? The second one is, do they want it? So it kind of goes to our core value of passion, or the why, right? Do they want to do it? Are they passionate about what they're doing? Um, and then lastly is capacities. Like, are they, do they have the time, the skills, the bandwidth to actually complete the accountabilities that is assigned to them? So that's how you really determine if your team members in the right seat and the right person. Um, I want to kind of take a small break here from people, and I want to kind of go into the operation and how this all things come together. We have the mission, with the vision, core values. We talked about that already. We now have a team in place. let's talk about managing that team. Let's talk about managing how they work. So I kind of brought up two key points earlier. I brought up KPIs, key performance indicators. I talked about SOPs and all that stuff. I want to talk about how this came to be and where this kind of came from. This is from what's called the Kaizen system. So I want to think the birth of all this philosophy and way of running business, it kind of came from Japan. It came from Japan, and it was actually with Toyota. So the owner of Toyota, he kind of came up with a book. There's a book called the Toyota Production System out there, I believe, and he wrote this book about all these things that we're talking about, SOPs, key performance indicators, metrics, having goals, having the right meeting in place. And he called it Kaizen. So Kaizen is actually a Japanese word. It means Kai means to repeat and Zen means to improve. So it means to continuously improve. Um, I guess from a Japanese standpoint. But it's looking at small improvements on a daily basis. That way, you over time get a really great system. We try not to blame people. We don't want to say, "Oh, this is your fault for not doing it." You don't want to be the boss that's pointing fingers around. You want to look at the system as a whole and engineer it for you. This eventually created what's called the TPS system, and that then created just in time. So they had created systems where if they need a part, they would have X amount of like parts on hand, and then when it got to a certain level, it would then shoot a automatic trigger where it then imported or put an order in for new parts. That was called just in time production. We do something very similar for our flight schools. When we have a website, we're trying to build a website. We're looking, hey, we need to dedicate the resources now for this new client for this new flight school and get the website launched in a month. So we allocate the resources to make the time align correctly. Another aspect of this is the SOPs, making sure that it's all standardized. It's also looking at eliminating waste is another aspect of this too. So we bring this to the next level over here because it gets really in depth, and I'm going to share with you some of these RCA root cause analysis tools, CAPA stuff that they do in industries outside of aviation, maybe or outside of flight schools at least. Um, but I really kind of distilled it down to something very simple, which is the EOS system, the flight program. Like SOPs, having a scorecard, um, having we call the IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. That's really looking at the problems that you have and then coming up with a solution for it. That way, you prevent it from happening again. And then you want to make sure that every single person has a quarterly goal that they're aligned with. So that's really the EOS system in a nutshell. Here, let's get into SOPs. So SOPs really is pretty easy here. It's not hard. Like all you gotta do in general is write the SOP and say do it, right? We had a podcast guest. I don't know if Raul or Rowan producers on here. We had a podcast guest, I think last a couple of weeks ago, and they have a system where they create SOPs basically for you. So you create video content and then it aligns with like a procedure and a checklist and then it goes off each one. So it works for flight training and they would also do it for aviation maintenance. If anyone in my team can like point the direction in the chat here for where that is, that's one way to do it. It's not the only way to do it. I use Google Docs right now. I use Microsoft Word to create my SOP out. But there are tools out there to create systems. You can also do like video recording. So if you record a video of you doing it, you can use AI to then create the procedure for you. Um, the hardest part about a procedure now is not creating it, although I will say that's a big hurdle is creating the procedure. The hardest part of a procedure is making sure that the team members follow the procedure and then holding them accountable when they don't follow the procedure. So if my procedure says, for a discovery flight, we need to call them like a day before to make sure they're showing up, and then that's the procedure. That's one of the guidelines of procedure for a discovery flight. And then 6 months pass by. We do our discovery flights and all that stuff. And then I notice when I'm looking at my numbers, hey, I'm having a lot of people not showing up to my discovery flights. Why is this the case? You do more little research, you find out that your team members are not calling the prospect. They're not calling the prospective student a day in advance to make sure that they show up. Um, Someone didn't follow the procedure. So what do you do as a business owner to correct that? You show them procedure, you do training, and you hold them accountable. Either you either you either coach them. That's kind of the first thing. You coach them first. You coach, and then if they don't get it right the second time, you coach again. If they don't get it right the third time, and it's performance problem. Right? They're probably not the right person in the right seat. That in a nutshell is the standard operating procedure. Um, We do have a template, I believe, on our website. It's just a very general template, but really the procedure is pretty. You want to have who's accountable for the procedure, who actually does the procedure. You have to have the requirements of the procedure, so that's the different steps of it. You might have references, so there's like a PDF, maybe a POH or something like that, or something they need to refer to, or operating manual they need to refer to. You want to make sure you add a link or add a text box so they're saying, hey, refer to the POH for additional information. And lastly, as a checklist, get a checklist going, and make sure that summarize the entire procedure in a checklist. That way, it's very simple. Um, the last one, it's more for my own brevity, is having a doc control system. So, like, I like to add like when the procedure was updated. So, if I was the one that wrote the procedure, then let's say Dan, a month later, then updated the procedure, I would like Dan to sign off in the bottom, say, "Hey, I updated this procedure and I did it." That's kind of my take on it, but that's neither here or now. But like those are the elements of procedure. Make sure you write it. Um, Key aspects of this, yeah, is it's what I'm trying to do, and we have not implemented this, but I implemented this before in the factory, but not yet for Rudder. We build these procedures out. Then what I want is for my team members on an annual basis, whatever procedures are privy to them. So let's say they're SEO specialists. They need to read all of the SEO like procedures at least once a year, and then if there's anything incorrect with those procedures, they need to update it. Uh, um, that's the last kind of piece with the procedure, because if they don't constantly be updated like by reading it, it just goes into the archive, and then it's just a document that doesn't really have any value. You create value with that document by implementing and executing that document and making sure that people read it and follow it and are held accountable to it. All right. That's SOPs. That's one tool bag, one tool in the toolkit for continuous improvement. Next one is KPIs. So going to KPIs over here, you want to have what we do is we have a weekly meeting, and this kind of gets into the we're gonna have this in I think a few slides later. Um, we have a meeting with the managers and we talk about KPIs. That's kind of the first 5-10 minutes of the meeting, and we have a scorecard. So our scorecard is our revenue. That's one of the biggest ones that we have. Other ones is like retention is a big one for us. So how many of our customers are staying with us? How many of them are leaving? We have certain numbers we want to hit. So, for example, if our monthly revenue goal is $100,000 a month, okay, did we hit that goal? Or is it red? So maybe we want to hit 90 instead of 100. That's a red month then, right? Retention. So if I have 100 students, how many of them, how many people finish? This is a harder KPI to track, but it's definitely a good one. How many people started a private pilot training and finished? Probably 20%. I don't know. We do have a kind of shout out to the team here. We do have a lot of content we generated a few weeks ago about retention and all that stuff. Check out our YouTube channel, check out our blog, our website for more information on that. Um, my producer over here, he did give me a shout out, by the way. The procedure thing that we had, there there's a podcast, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Scott Angelo, he has a business called Upskill, and what it does is you create a video, and then from the video, then you can have a checklist or some procedure, and from there it can actually you know I don't know, it syncs it up, and it's a pretty neat piece of software there. So you have the KPIs. You need to understand your numbers. Other KPIs that are important for flight schools include number of leads. How many leads are you getting per month? How many inquiries are you getting per week, per month, per day? How often is the phone ringing? Out of, let's say, 100 leads, how many of them actually converted into a student? I've seen numbers like 5%. I've also seen numbers like 10-20%. So if I had 100 leads, then 20 of them became students. That's a great conversion rate. I don't think that's not very usual. It happens during the summer sometimes, but typically on average, most of our schools are around 5%, three to 5% from top of funnel. cold lead to an actual enrolled student. It's around 5%. Um, you want to make sure you define what is the successful like number you're trying to hit. And from there you color code it. Is it green? Is it red? Is it yellow? Um, put traffic light system. Are you reviewing it? So like I mentioned earlier, I have this meeting that happens every week, and my team goes through this number. We review it, we discuss it, and we come up with strategies to improve those numbers. On the slide here is some other KPIs that are very useful for flight school. So fleet utilization rate is a really good one. Most schools should be trying to target 60 to 70 hours per plane or per helicopter per aircraft per month. Anything less than that is you're either breaking even or losing money. So you really need to make sure that you have a good utilization rate for your flight school. How do you get the utilization rate? You have more students. How do you get more students? You do marketing. Next one is like CFI turnover rate. Average revenue per student is another good KPI. Excuse me. To measure, we like to estimate it anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 per student that comes in. Sometimes, if it's an accelerated program, maybe that number is 70,000. I don't know. It really depends on how you're running your business, right? Checkride pass rate's a good one too. Like understanding how many people are actually successfully completing our program. That way, you get these numbers and you hit them, and you want to make sure you're doing it. Um, it's really providing the traction and the vision to like the momentum to move forward. If you don't have these numbers, you're not documenting these numbers. You're just kind of I like to equate it to a sailboat without a sail. You're just in the water and just kind of waiting around, and you're letting the environment, you're letting the local market, um, you're letting everyone else dictate how your business is gonna move around. If you're not defining what numbers are important to you and what the targets are, you're not really going anywhere. So make sure you define your KPIs. We have some good examples on the slide here, and make sure you review it every single month. Month is minimum. So we actually do it every week, but monthly minimum. Um, you could do it quarterly, and that kind of gets me into my next one too. The next one over here is goal setting, right? So you look at you look at your team, and as you kind of define the challenges and problems of your organization, you're going to see that there's certain fixes that need to get done. Some of them are big fixes, so this is not like a simple one. Uh, Usually, you want to create every team member should have like a goal every quarter to try to hit. Whether it's if it's let's say it's CFI, and then the goal should be, hey, I want to strive that 95% of my students, get to a check ride. I don't know. Maybe that's their goal, and then you hold them accountable for it. So every team member needs a goal. The company as a whole needs a goal as well, and typically every single team member's goal should somehow link to the company goal. I don't know if this is making sense or not. So, for example, my goal, let's say for Rudder Marketing, our goal is to hit $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Yeah, that's our goal. Now I have a team of videographers, a team of producers, web designers, SEO specialists, customer service reps. I have a team of built in for this. Each person now needs to think, okay, what can I do to help the company reach that $100,000 mark? Maybe. And maybe for them, if they're doing, let's say they're a designer, then maybe it's like, hey, my goal is to increase our Instagram following from 500 to 700 in the next quarter. Okay, that's a goal. I kind of give you some examples of these goals, but what this is it's called a SMART goal. So if you look here, this is another continuous improvement, I guess, technique here. Is people say, "Oh, I want a bigger business. Oh, I want to train more students. Oh, I want to expand to another location." Um, this it's a good vision to have, and it's a decent goal, but it's not a SMART goal. So what we're looking for is to build out what's called a SMART goal. So SMART stands for specific. So it's not vague. So I said, hey, I want to grow my business. That's my goal for the quarter. That's not acceptable. You want a specific goal in mind. In this case, we're looking. That's why I brought the numbers up first, because hey, a lot of times the KPIs can be a goal. So hey, if I'm trying to hit, I don't know, let's say I want to have 100 leads a month, in the month in this, I don't know, in June and July. That can be your quarterly goal. Like every single month, I want to hit at least 100. It's specific. It's measurable. You can measure this. Uh, Achievable. There's kind of two things about goals. One is this part, make it achievable goal. Um, then then you have what's called a bag. So bag stands for big ass goal. So it's like I want to be a $5 million business rather than 1 million. 10x my revenue. Those seemingly impossible goals to have. That's another philosophy out there, and it's like shoot for the stars, you hit the moon, right? Um, we're not talking about that today, but that is definitely a critical piece to know and think about. But for a SMART goal, we want to look at an achievable goals. If let's say let's say I only have 10 leads a month going on in my school. I'm a small school. I'm not getting many inquiries. I only have 10 people coming in. I don't think it's very appropriate for that school to say I want to get 200 leads per month and also 50 students in the next quarter. It's a little aggressive. Maybe if you want it, maybe if it's that important to you, then make it happen. Invest commit to invest the right resources to it, whether it's financial resources, time resources, people resources. Make sure you commit to that. Um, but in general, you don't want to overshoot your goal. You don't want to have a goal that's so hard that you can't make it, then you can't reach it, and then you get disgruntled every single quarter. You don't want that. So make sure your goal is achievable. Make sure it's relevant. So, like I said, make sure it's tied into the company goal as a whole. And lastly is time bound. So that's why it's very easy to do this as a quarterly thing because, like, hey, you only have 3 months to do this. So if my goal for one of my developers was, hey, I want to build out a library of procedures for XYZ, that would be their goal. It's very simple. I know they gotta get it done by we're in Q2, so they gotta get it done by July. And that's time bound. It's relevant to the company. Helps build our revenue over time because its systems are done in place. It's achievable. All it does is take some elbow grease to get it. It's measurable because, like, hey, you gotta build. Maybe it's not just a library procedure. I want to have a library procedure that encompass, you know, how to make a repo, how to do keywords, how to do a headline tag, how to do maybe outline each one specific. And I guess the next one specific as well. So make sure you're doing goals in your school. Make sure you're doing goals in your business. If you're not making goals, you're just kind of sitting there. You're just not really doing much. You need a target. You get the target going. All right. So that's the goal. We were kind of going back and forth about systems, right? So we were talking about procedures for a bit, and then if something fails in the procedure, what is the next step? So I kind of talked about correcting it, like mentoring them, coaching them, and then doing a performance improvement plan and something like that. But it's not just about the people; it's also about the system. And there's different ways to address problems, um, issues, challenges in the company. And for us, at least in my experience, what I've done is I've done in the factory, we call it CAPA. So CAPA stands for Corrective Action, Preventative Action. Um, if let's say I don't know, let's say someone is pushing back a plane inside a hangar and then they get hangar rash, they hit the wing on the hangar wall by accident. So the corrective action is then to fix the plane, obviously. Do an insurance claim if you have to. I don't know. Do some sheet metal work, do the inspections, sign it off, get an AMP to get it done. Fixing the problem, right? That is what's known as a corrective action. That's the first step. The next thing that we need to do as business owners is how do we prevent this from happening again? Because I would hate to run a flight school and every 3 months a plane gets hit by a wall because someone is trying to bring it in the hangar and they're rushing, right? Um, so what's the preventative action in that case, right? So the way to approach the preventative action is to create a process to eliminate the risk of that happening, right? Um, and there's different tools out there to do all this stuff. So what we're getting into is called RCA, or root cause analysis. So root cause analysis has a very big part of of CAPA, because if you have not properly defined the root cause, you will never fix the issue, right? Okay. So the first easiest one that that I kind of hated when I was working in manufacturing, is called the five whys. It's very simple, but let's run this example here. So they ran a plane on the hangar. They were rushing. Why were they rushing? Or why did it hit the hangar? Okay, because the person um was using a tow bar, and couldn't see the wall when he came in. And he's also rushing because he wanted to go home. All right, that's one why. But then, okay, why was now you can branch it different ways. Why was he rushing to go home? Why? Okay, he was rushing to go home because it's already 6 p.m. Why was he putting the plane in the hangar at 6 p.m. and not like 4 p.m. before close? Because he had to do other stuff. Okay, now we're hitting something really good. Okay, why was he doing other stuff besides his job? Because I don't know, maybe Tim said to do this. Now you hit the actual root cause. The problem was he was absorbed of other tasks that he is now not able to do this task. So the fix in this case is either to assign another person or to put a schedule in place where, hey, at this time you do this, at this time you do this, at this time you do this, and finally at 4 or 5 p.m. you put the plane in the hangar. That's one way to do it. That's one branch of of a kappa that can go. Another reason, okay, he's towing the plane and he couldn't see the wall, and then it hit the wall. Okay, why couldn't he see the wall? Because at that angle with a towing fork, the wing is at a 90 degrees, and it's hard to tell how close the wall is. Um, why are we not able to see that? Because there's not a person there to tell him that it's close to the wall. And why is there no person there? Because we never assign a person to look at the right wing as it goes into the hangar. Now you just got to your kappa. Okay, whenever you are towing a plane, let's say it's the Cirrus, because Cirrus has a wider wing, right? Whenever you're towing that plane inside the hangar, especially this specific model that has a wider wingspan, we need to make sure that there is another technician, maybe a maintenance tech or a CFI or someone there that's on the right wingtip, making sure it doesn't hit the wall. That is your corrective preventative action. So it's really asking yourself why repeatedly until you hit the answer. That is one methodology that is used, that's overly used, but it's very effective. Um, the next one is called Fishbone. This was developed in Japan as well. So, like I said, this came from Japanese thinking, right? The Kaizen stuff. They call it Ishikawa. That stands for rock and river. I don't know. Maybe I got to do more research on that. But in general, in America we call it a fishbone, and the reason we call it a fishbone is because it looks like this. Let's see if we can show this to you. It looks like that. Uh, it defines what sorts of problems are there. It defines the different aspects of how a problem can be created. So the first one is the method. So we kind of looked at the procedure. Maybe the procedure's not right. Maybe it's not the right people in there. It's not the right sequence of events. That's the method, right? Machines. So maybe instead of using a tow bar, we need to have a tractor or a golf cart or something like that to do it rather than this. People. Do we have the right person doing this? Are the right people that are in this job role or in this function to do it? Environment. Maybe instead of putting the plane in that hangar, put him in a different hangar that's bigger. Right? Maybe the environment's the wrong. Maybe that we look at it a different way. Maybe it's the environment is just not suited for this procedure. We should probably take it in a different place. Um, Measurement. It's looking at are we measuring the right things to do it? So in this case of hitting a plane in a hangar wall, do we have one thing I'll share this with you guys really quick. One thing I really like about Dan, our video producer here, he has these his tape. He puts tape on the ground to mark where to put the camera. I don't know. You don't have to show them, or you can show them really quick, I guess. But he has tape on the ground that shows where things are. So it's like, hey, this would be where this is set. This would be where this is set. You can do the same thing for your hangar. You can say, hey, put this plane here, and this is the line that it's supposed to go in, right? You can do that. So make sure you have the right measurements in place. Materials, it's saying, hey, that's kind of going back to environment, but maybe you have the wrong. I don't think it's a good example for the hangar stuff, but maybe you're using the wrong stuff. So these are the 6 different elements where a problem can arise. That's why I like using the fishbone diagram. Going back, we are running out of time here, so I understand if you need to sign off, you can. I'm going to go ahead and continue. We have about 10 more tools in here. I'm going to continue this because we're going to republish this in different ways, so it's okay. If you have questions, by the way, make sure you put it on the chat here. I understand people have to leave. I want to honor that chat function, so if you do have questions, if you want to hear more tools or something like that, put it in the chat and I'll try to address it. The next one over here is the DMAIC process. DMAIC process is looking at the problem and it's trying to see how it can stop, how you can prevent it from happening again. So DMAIC stands for define. So you're defining the problem and you're putting it in a box. It's measuring it. So measuring like what is there, analyzing it. So doing the RCA thing that we just did, the root cause analysis, improving it, and then controlling it. So you want to make sure you repeat the cycle. When I was doing the manufacturing work, we would make a fix. Then the process was 1 week. The manager needs to follow up. If the process is still following, then we do it in a month. If the process is still following after a month, we do it in a quarter. And after a quarter, we kind of let it go. Say, hey, these guys are trained. They guys know what they're doing. It's good. There's a book I think called Atomic Habits or something like that. It takes like what I think it's like 4 weeks of repetitive action to create a habit. A habit is a behavior. A behavior is a result of a procedure. So if they're following the procedure, it's building the right habits and the right things in place for your company. DMAIC is all about following up. It's about defining it, about measuring it, about analyzing the root cause, improving it, and then finally making sure you have it under control. All right, so we have all these tools here. We talked about root cause analysis, CAPA, Ishikawa fishbone diagram. That's a fun one that I like to do. The next one over here is how do we make sure that we're on track. So this is kind of my way to have traction in my company. The way we have build momentum. We have daily, weekly, quarterly, and annual things that we do. So on a daily, each department has what's called a daily huddle. So what that means is like it should just be a 5 to 10 minute. It shouldn't be a long 1 hour meeting. It should be a very short meeting. But basically, it's like what you did yesterday or what you're doing today. What are the challenges that you think might have? And is there anything that we can do? Is there anyone in the team that can help you with this and maybe address it later? So it's talking about what you did and what you're doing today and challenges. And then if there are challenges or there is something that you need to discuss further with another team member, you take it offline on a different meeting because this whole meeting is just a round table, a 10-minute meeting. It's a stand down meeting. We call it stand downs or stand ups, whatever you want to do. And it should just really brief and like kind of open the day up, make sure you're productive. Every week, we meet with a team, we go over the numbers. This is called a level 10 meeting. So I mentioned this before, what KPIs we have, but really what we're doing during this level 10 meeting is we're going over the numbers, the metrics. We're going over the quarterly goals. We're going over issues. So IDS is the issue list, the problems things. We're defining what problems we need to solve in the company. And then we're also doing headlines. So any big call outs, so for example, on our level 10, we go through, finance department. What's your numbers from there? Any call outs? We go through HR, who are we hiring next? What's our recruiting process looking at like? How is our headhunting going? How is our retention with our employees doing? That's another aspect of it too. Make sure you retain your employees. We have the operations department give a small headline like, hey, what flight schools that we have that need work this week, like in particular, like a lot. Code red or code yellow. Like, hey, this is what we need to fix. That all happens in a level 10 meeting. It's about an hour and a half. We do it every week and we document this meeting. There's notes that get taken. By the way, for meetings, you should have a timekeeper. So you should have an agenda first off. So every meeting should have an agenda where you define what the goal is for that meeting. And then you have a timekeeper that makes sure that the meeting stays on track. And then you have the leader, which is usually the person that's hosting the meeting. Then you have the note taker. So someone has to take the notes from the meeting. A lot of these things can be automated. So your note taker guy can be AI. You can record the meeting on your phone, and a lot of apps now can summarize the entire thing. I'm just putting that out there. Um, Going out of the level 10 stuff, there's the quarterly meeting. So that is a leadership meeting as well. Um, that is usually we're going over our rocks. We're defining if we need to define our core values even more and change it. But we're looking at what wings and quarterly goals we want to set for the company. So, for example, I said earlier, my goal was to hit, let's say, $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Okay, that is my goal for this quarter, right? And we define that as a team and make sure that all department heads are aligned in that path. This one for us is an annual retreat. So our last one is an annual meeting. It's a couple days. So like this is more for us in general, but this is what we do. But we like to take our team out to a place, take them out, go to an amusement park or go to a tourist site, maybe go to have a dinner. But we have a small retreat. We talk about this type of stuff, wings, issues, continuous improvement, and we come up with ideas to fix it for the following year. Right? We set the tone for the following year at this meeting. That's the cadences that we have. I think it really comes down to your daily and weeklies and your quarterlies. But make sure you have them. Make sure you're always keeping track of your numbers. Making sure you're keeping track of your team. When you have issues, make sure that you're going through your corrective actions and preventative actions. Right. Going back on the level 10 here. So this is a little more detail that I'll provide here. So the first one is talking about we open up with just a general meeting like, hey, how's the kids, how's the wife, whatever. We open up with a win, like we say, hey, what's a personal win? So like, hey, like last week I went running and I ran a marathon. That's a win. And then for the business, I helped implement this procedure last week. Okay, that's win. Move on. um After that, you go over the scorecard. Those are the numbers. Rock review, so we're going over the quarterly goals, headlines. I talked about that already. To-do list, if there's a list you got to do, that kind of goes with the issue list as well. It's looking at what are the problems we have in the company. And lastly, we conclude it. So we send the notes out to the team, and that's how we get going there. So after that, this is the daily huddle. Talk about what's going on. Let's keep going here. So we went through all the stuff here. There's a lot of content I went over. So we went over, just in general root cause analysis. We went over accountability charts. We went over procedures. We went over RCA, root cause analysis. We went over different tools like that. So that's Fishbone diagram, 5 Whys, DMAIC. There's a lot of things out there for all this type of stuff, by the way. So this stuff is not me just saying this out of nowhere. This is on Wikipedia even. You can look it up on the internet. This stuff is in a lot of big businesses. If we are a small business, we need to start creating a system where it operates like a bigger business, right? Because if we only operate as a small business, we will stay a small business. If you want to be a bigger business and have a bigger impact, we need to run like a big business. And having these tools is what does that. So we have what's here, the 90-day plan. So this is the kind of like we talk about if you have not done any EOS, continuous improvement, you have not done any of this stuff, this is a 90-day plan to kind of get this stuff implemented right away at your flight school. So the first one is defining core values. Get that done in the first couple of weeks. Next one, you want to define your accountability chart. Is looking at every single job role that I have in my company needs to be defined, and each job role needs to have what's accountable for that job role. So, for example, if I'm a web dev, I'm responsible for launching a website. I'm responsible for maintaining the website. I'm responsible for designing the website. If I am SEO specialist, I'm in charge of creating the backlinks. I'm in charge of doing this. If I'm a CFI, I'm in charge of calling the student before the lesson. I'm in charge of debriefing. I'm in charge of flying the plane with the student. I'm in charge of being a PIC. I'm in charge of debriefing afterwards. I'm in charge of making sure that IACRA is done correctly. All these accountabilities, all these little check boxes need to be defined into your program. That way, when you hire this person, you show them this document, say this is your accountabilities, and you run with it. A lot of times the people just are confused as far as what to do in the business. They don't know what is important. They just kind of say, I'm hired, please pay me, and they sit. You need to define what they're accountable for. That way they're successful. That then leads into the KPIs. So a lot of that stuff for defining success goes to, did they hit the mark? Did they hit the metric? Did they have the right number of students? Did you call the right number of people? Did they have the right number of checkride passes? So on and so forth. Um, One KPI to have that's very easy is zero accidents, zero incidents, safety first. The minute you fail that KPI, then you pull it in your accountability document. Hey, part being accountable as a CFI is to be safe, right? That's one of your core responsibilities, and your accountability is to be safe. You just taxi the plane to a runway sign, and you let the student do it. Instant like negative KPI, and they hold them accountable, let them go. I don't know, performance coach, you do your thing, right? Then it goes into procedures. So this is the harder one. This is more in like month 2 now. So we've already defined your core values. You've already gotten your accountability charts. What each person is responsible for. You have your KPIs set. You know what numbers you want to hit. Now we're creating the process to build that forward. Create the SOPs. Go on our website, download the free SOP checklist if you want, or SOP template if you want. If you need help with that, but there's a lot of templates out there. Just get an SOP written. It can even be a post-it note. Just start with a post-it note, get it defined, and then write it in paper, then officiate it as the owner of the business. Once you get your SOPs written, the next one is to create rocks, create quarterly goals. Make sure you launch these goals. That way you have a right target. And then lastly is to then review this. You make sure you start running these reviews. Make sure we call it a VTO meeting, Vision Traction Organizer. Look that up in the internet later. But it's meeting and understanding that every goal is going to be hit. We know where the company is going to go. We know where it's going to go this quarter. And this is kind of how we hypothesize and project our revenue, our sales, our success rate. This is how we are going to project it. And we have that in our quarterly meeting. All right. That's a lot of content over. We're a little over. I think everyone stuck around, so I really appreciate you guys sticking around to the very end. Uh, Obviously, a lot of stuff is on your plate. I myself am doing this with my team and with my company. A lot of stuff is on your plate. There are other things that can be taken off your plate, though. So as a business owner, we're getting pulled left and right. We're going, whether it's a vendor calling us, whether it's a maintenance guy calling us, maybe our students are calling us. It gets busy very, very quick. So then a lot of times the marketing and sales gets put on the wayside. We're here for you. We can help you take that off your plate. Give us a call, 804-1200. Check us out, ruddermarketing.com. We help fly schools all across the country, internationally even. We build these systems. We don't build continuous improvement systems. We can help advise and consult you with you and show you what we do. And we can give you some of these tools, like some of these templates we do. But we're able to create this pipeline for you, for students. So you get the revenue, you're able to build your business, more qualified students. We have website designers, we have SEO specialists, we have video producers, we have copywriters. Give us a call. I think a lot of schools need this, right? I think that we're not here. We wouldn't be here if schools didn't need us. So, give us a call. That's all I got. That's my entire spiel. I know I went on for a little longer here. We'll see here. There's a picture of here. If you're ready to grow your school, check us out. But it's a lot of content. So we went over continuous improvement. I really appreciate everyone that stuck around here. Shout out to Tom over here. I share that comment. It's a big one. As I understand, lean manufacturing actually started with World War II. Okay, World War II, Japanese companies from Ford's production line. Okay, TPS was born specifically for those Toyota suppliers, ultimately the world. I didn't know that. So that actually was from a different route. From when I was working in the manufacturing, I just heard about Toyota. So I guess it goes farther back than even then. Really appreciate you, Tom, for hanging around, sticking around. I know you like this type of stuff since you're also in manufacturing. But this is the type of stuff that I want to try to help all the schools build. A lot of these schools, they don't have procedures. A lot of these schools, they don't have meetings. They don't have, a daily huddle with their team. They don't have a scorecard sometimes. These are things that I think every school, any small business can benefit from. Document these things, document the process. You have SOPs. So anyway, I'm over time here, so we're going to end here. If you like this stuff, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like us. If you are a flight school that needs help, give us a ring. But yeah, we're going to end here, and I'm looking forward to next month. I'll give you some updates too. So next month, we're going to be doing, we're going to be in Aero Summit. So Aero Summit is in Miami. We're bringing our team over there. We're also visiting a lot of schools in Florida. So look forward to that. Check us out on your YouTube channel. Check us out on our website. We are there for you guys. Hopefully, we will see you guys soon. It's been a great 1 hour session. thank you guys so much for hopping on. We'll see you guys in the next webinar in May. See you guys around.